One of the complaints that I hear from viewers of my channel is that I focus too much on Arch Linux and tools like Vim and Emacs and things that are more focused toward the power users, tiling window managers, stuff like that. And some of these viewers that are complaining, they're wanting more content that's not necessarily noob content, but they want something that's not exactly, quote, elite hacker power user content either. They want something in the middle. There's a middle ground there, and they're right. Maybe I should focus on that sort of stuff more often, because I get it that most Linux desktop users use distributions like Ubuntu or an Ubuntu based system, and I know that you can't go from 0 to 100 miles an hour like that, right? There's steps in between. For me, myself, I didn't just jump from being a brand new Linux user installing Ubuntu for the first time to a couple of weeks later installing Arch Linux and diving into Vim and Emacs and using Xmonad and things like that. No, again, it was a gradual process for me. It's going to be a gradual process for you. So today I'm going to take a very popular Linux distribution, a new user Linux distribution, Linux Mint. And I'm going to show you guys some subtle ways to tweak Linux Mint just a little bit as you progress from noob to power user. So let me switch over to the desktop here, and this is Linux Mint 19.3. This is, of course, the flagship Cinnamon edition of Linux Mint. And what I'm going to show you guys is kind of how I would tweak Linux Mint Cinnamon if I had to use it now with kind of the default standard tools. I'm not going to install a bunch of extra stuff. I'm not going to install Vim or Emacs or things like that. We're not going to switch out the window manager. We're going to use Cinnamon, and we're going to use most of the built-in tools here in Linux Mint. Now, the first thing on your way to becoming more of a power user, if you're actually wanting to learn a little bit about Linux, go from being brand new to, knowing a little something about your system, you need to be familiar with the terminal. Now, there is a terminal here in these quick launchers here. You could also use a key binding built into Linux Mint. Control-Alt-T, I believe, also brings up a terminal. Now I have two terminals because I just hit Control-Alt-T. Let me close one of them. If you're serious about becoming, more of a power user, you got to get used to using the keyboard, and especially using key bindings to launch programs you use all the time and key bindings to close programs. So the very first thing I think you guys really should consider doing is changing some of the key bindings and adding some extra key bindings. So if you go into the settings panel here, and let's scroll down and find keyboard and shortcuts. And these are the built-in key bindings that are in Linux Mint, but I suggest changing a few things and adding your own stuff as well. For example, launching a terminal, they have it set to the default Control-Alt-T. It's kind of a standard Linux key binding to launch a terminal. For those of you that eventually want to transition to using window managers, especially tiling window managers, I would suggest getting used to the concept of a mod key. A mod key is basically a key that you set on the keyboard to always be the modifier key for all your key bindings. Most people use the super key. So super enter brings up a terminal. Super P brings up a run prompt. Super E brings up your text editor. Super W brings up your web browser. You get the idea. All the key combinations involve the super key in some way. That's your modifier key. That's the modifier key in most Linux window managers. So I would suggest using the super key as much as possible in your key bindings, and I will suggest some common ones. So I'm going to pick a new key binding here to launch our terminal. And super enter is the most common hotkey key binding for launching a terminal in most window managers. So just set it to super return. And now anytime I hit super enter, we get a terminal pop up. Now I would like to also be able to close windows without actually having to grab my mouse, because right now I have to grab the mouse and close the window, and that sucks because grabbing the mouse, you're got to put my hand on the desk and I'm moving. This is going to hurt your hands. Use the keyboard as much as possible. Try to get away from using the mouse. I mean, you have to use the mouse in some programs. You have to scroll, or if you're opening GIMP and drawing and stuff. But most of the programs you use on a daily basis really don't require much mouse interaction. And one of the things, how many times do you close Windows if you're a desktop Linux user? All the time, right? Every time you open a program, you have to close it, and you're always closing it with the mouse. Stop that. It's going to do some damage to your hands eventually. So what I would do is I would go up to the Windows shortcuts that they have. They have close window here. It's set to Alt F4. So they did have a key binding to close a window, but it's horrible. Alt and then the function key F4. Let's set that to something more sensible. And again, it should involve the super key. And I'm going to use one that's common in certain tiling window managers like Xmonad, which would be Super Shift and then C. So remember, Super, Enter, brings up a terminal, Super Shift C to close. So, and Super Shift C will work on all windows, not just the terminal. It's just Super Enter, though, brings up specifically the terminal. While we're setting some common key bindings, let me see if I go to the general settings. And that's not what I want. Let me go to System. Here's what I want. Log out. Control-Alt-Delete logs out in Linux Mint. I'm going to set that to something a little more standard for tiling window managers. Because again, I'm assuming some of you guys will eventually transition to where you will want to maybe try out some tiling window managers. And typically, to quit those, a common key binding would be like Super Shift Q or quit. And if we wanted to try this out right now, I could Super Shift Q. And you see, I get the log out prompt here. And then I also got the menu coming up because the menu uses super. We're going to get rid of that menu though, because that's obviously going to conflict with some stuff. And you don't really want to use this kind of menu system. If you're wanting to transition into being more of a power user, these kinds of point and click menu systems, this old school paradigm kind of sucks. It really does. This is going to slow you down. I'm going to show you some run command launchers that are much more effective and efficient than your standard menu system that's probably built into your desktop environment. So let's go ahead and get rid of this menu system. The first thing I would do though is make sure that you have some of the most common programs you need pinned to the panel just in case. And I do have Firefox, a terminal emulator, the file manager. I'm going to go ahead and pin the system settings too because we're going to be using them a lot, at least in the next few minutes. So now I can close this. Remember, Super Shift C closes a window. And then the next thing I want to do is go down to the menu system. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to remove the menu. It's going to ask me, do I really want to do that? Yes, I do. And the super key won't always bring up the cinnamon menu. Now, you know, the super key can really act as a modifier for all our custom key bindings that we may set. So let me super enter to bring up a terminal. And can I make this full screen? If I do super and the up arrow key, no, that doesn't make it full screen, but it takes up half the screen. Super down puts it back in the middle. But I can grab it with the mouse for now, and if I double click it, it should go full screen. And let me zoom in a little bit. Does Control plus zoom in? It does. What terminal emulator are we using here in Linux Mint? They are using the GNOME terminal. It's a fine terminal emulator. Let's just stick with it. Let's stick with the default tools for this video. So since we got rid of our menu system from the panel, I mentioned we need some kind of run launcher. You guys know that I love dmenu, but I know dmenu's not for everybody. It's a suckless utility. You have to compile it and patch it, you know, and there's a middle ground there. You don't go straight from your built-in menu system of your desktop environment straight to dmenu. Well, many people do. But if you wanted something kind of in between, Rofi. So I'm going to do a sudo apt install Rofi. And hit enter. Let me give it my password. And Rofi is installed. To run Rofi, you could read the man page on Rofi if you didn't know anything about Rofi, but typically Rofi is used in this method here. Rofi-show and then the mode that you want to show. There's several built-in modes to Rofi. But typically the one you're going to use most of the time is Rofi-show run. And that is your run prompt. From there, you can type any command in that launcher, and it should execute it for you. You hit escape, and the Rofi menu goes away if you didn't want to type anything. There's some other Rofi options, though. I mean, we could do Rofi-show SSH, especially you guys that SSH into remote machines often. That is a useful command to know. We may set it to a key binding. Matter of fact, we should set all the useful Rofi commands to key bindings. And there is also a Rofi-show space window. And as you can guess, it shows you all the open programs on the system. So instead of having maybe to Alt-tab, to get all your open windows, I only have one window open right now. We could just use Rofi for this. Alt-tab, brings up this kind of menu here in Linux Mint. But let's go back into the system settings and Now that we've got Rofi installed, we need to set that to a key binding. So I'm going to go to custom shortcuts. How about add custom shortcut? And we need to add this one because it's very important. This is how we're going to launch most of our programs if we don't have a custom key binding already set for it, or we don't have a launcher in the panel. Rofi is used for the programs you don't use that often. So Rofi-show run is the command. Let me copy and paste that. I'm going to click add, and then we need to set it to a key binding. Now, still assuming that you're eventually going to move to tiling window managers at some point in the future to avoid confusion later, one of the default key bindings for opening a run prompt like dmenu or Rofi is Super P. That is often one that is used in other window managers. Super P is currently used to redetect display devices. If you continue, yeah, I do want to reassign that. If Super P was set to something else, that's fine. I'll just set a different key binding to whatever we replaced later. Let's see if Super P works. Now, Super P brings up Rofi. That's exactly what we want. Other than Rofi show run, again, if you happen to use SSH on a regular basis, you may want to go ahead and set a key binding to Rofi-show SSH. Let me copy and paste that, add it, set a key binding. What key binding? I don't know. For SSH, Super S, is that set to something else? It is. It is currently used to show desklets. We're not going to use any desklets. When we become power users, well, we're not going to use things like desklets and widgets, desktop widgets and conkeys and things like that. We want nothing on our screen. So Super S now should bring up the SSH Rofi, and I could set up the window Rofi while I'm here, so I might as well. So -show window. Now, you guys that are used to using something like Alt Tab or Super Tab to rotate your windows, you could just bind that. You could do Alt Tab, and it says Alt Tab is currently used to cycle through your windows. Well, we're replacing the default functionality with the Rofi menu, because why not? I mean, it's a better way to switch between your windows. So now let me Super Shift C to close this window, and I'm going to Super P to run Rofi. And Rofi has a built-in program that allows you to select pre-built themes that are already installed in Rofi. So let me see, Rofi theme selector. Some of these themes look pretty good. I mean, those are not bad looking themes. The one I want, and there's a lot of Grubbox themes. I think Grubbox looks pretty bad. Here's a color scheme I've used a lot in the past, a terminal color scheme called Monokai. And that actually looks pretty good in Rofi here. Yeah, I'm going to use that. So if I hit Alt-A, it tells me Alt-A to accept the new theme. Now Super P to bring up Rofi. Yeah, I like this theme. I like this theme a lot. Let me escape. You know what? If we're going to use the Monokai theme for Rofi, I say we pimp out the entire desktop in the Monokai theme. Let's really make it rice worthy. Let's make it something worthy of going and posting over on r/Unix porn later, if that's what we want to do. So we've got Rofi looking pretty good. Yeah, I like Rofi. Let's go ahead and do something to the terminal. So I'm going to super enter to bring up this terminal, and let's see if we can get a Monokai theme installed here on the terminal. Now, if I do a super and a left arrow, yeah, I can get the terminal to take up half the screen. Let me launch Firefox. And then I'm going to super right arrow to put Firefox there, because we're going to need to do a search here. I'm going to do GNOME terminal Monokai, because somebody already has a theme out there for us. Oh my God, are they really using Yahoo search in Linux Mint? Wow, somebody should file a bug report immediately. And you know what? I refuse to. I'll go to Google any day before I use Yahoo. That is just crazy. All right, so GNOME terminal Monokai. The second one is the one I'm going to use. It's Allison Shell is the guy's username or girl's username over on GitHub, and he's got Monokai-GNOME-terminal. And to install it, let's see if he's got some installation instructions. And this is how you become a power user, guys, right? You go to GitHub, you find stuff, and you install it. And you know what? The instructions are right here. It basically tells you, if you're on an Ubuntu or Ubuntu-based system, there is a dependency, dconf-cli. Let me zoom in here in the terminal so you can see this. So sudo apt install dconf-cli. And was it already installed? It might have already been here, so we didn't even need it. And the next thing we need to do is git clone the repository. Let me zoom in here in Firefox so you guys can see the instructions. So we need to git clone this repository. So I'm going to highlight it with the mouse. I'm going to middle click it with the mouse and then middle click in the terminal. It says git is not installed on the system. Sudo apt install git. You definitely want git on the system if you're going to transition to the power user. You're going to be using a git clone all the time to pull down other people's scripts and programs and config files. All right, so we got git on the system, so let's run the previous command before that. So if I arrow key up twice, there's the git clone. Now it should work. Okay. Now we need to cd into monakai-gnome-terminal, because if I do a ls, you will see there is that repository that we just did the git clone on. So let's cd into that. I'm going to do a ls to see what's in it. There's a script called install.sh to run that. Typically, to run a shell script, you can do the period and then slash and then the name of the script. So install.sh. Hit enter. You need to create a new default profile to continue. Okay. Yes. Please select a GNOME terminal profile. Monakai. Okay, that's the one I'm going to go with. So I'll just choose one. Are you sure you want to overwrite the selected profile? Yes. All right. Now let me Super Shift C to close that terminal. And I had another terminal opened earlier. Let me Super Shift C to close that one. And if I Super Enter, yeah, do we get a different color scheme here, or is it the same one? I think it's a different one. If I go to Edit and to Preferences, let me just double check, make sure this is the correct color scheme. Yeah, I recognize these colors. See these colors down here? It says built-in scheme, custom. This is Monakai. Now, the one thing why it kind of looked weird to me is because the terminal is transparent. It's got like a 50% opacity, and that's why I didn't recognize the background color. I don't want transparency in my terminal. You know, a terminal really should be solid in color if you're going to be using it all the time. It just makes reading the text a lot better. I mean, that just looks cleaner without having the wallpaper bleed through. I know in screenshots you often see a lot of transparency, but really for your eyes, for sake of, you know, your eyes, I suggest just using a solid color background for everything. Here, if I right click in the GNOME terminal, and you get this right click menu and go to preferences, and this is where we can set the preferences for the profile we created, which we called Monakai, or the script we ran earlier calls Monakai. And from here we can change the font. By default it's set to monospace regular. I'm not sure what the default monospace is. Do they have the Ubuntu font family? Because again, we want to use things that are already on the system where possible, and Ubuntu Mono is a fantastic terminal font. So let's set that to Ubuntu Mono Regular 13. You know, for my eyes, I'm going to change that a little bit. One thing you never need in a terminal, you really don't need a scroll bar. You don't need the menu here at the top. So let's see if there's ways where we can get rid of that. If I go to General, Show Menu Bar. No, we don't need that. Let's get rid of that. And is there a way to get rid of the scroll bar somewhere? Colors, scrolling, scroll bar, show scroll bar, turn that off. Scroll on keystroke, okay. All right, we set that, so Super Shift C to close. Let's Super Enter to bring up a new terminal. That is almost perfect. The only thing I would change from here, if I right click and go back into Preferences, is I don't like the default size. When I do Super Enter, the size of the terminal that comes up is a little small. Because typically I want to immediately run something, and that's a little small. You know, if I had something with a lot of output, I would rather it start out quite a bit bigger. So I'm going to make the initial size, instead of 80 by 24, I'm going to do 120 by 40. Let's make it a little bigger. All right, and now Super Enter. Yeah, it brings up a more properly sized terminal, at least in my opinion. So I'm good with that, so we can Super Shift C to close. Now let me Super Shift C to close Firefox, or actually I closed the terminal. Let me close Firefox too. Let me bring back a terminal though, because I need another terminal open. And if I zoom in with Super Shift plus sign, that's just the standard default key binding to zoom in the GNOME terminal. Super, then the minus sign zooms out. Matter of fact, I zoomed in a little bit too much. Let me zoom back out. That really became huge. I'm going to do a sudo apt install neofetch. If we're going to be using the terminal a lot, we need to make our terminal have a little more pizzazz, a little more bling. So If we run neofetch by typing the command neofetch, this is neofetch. Really neat, right? Really cool. Now, what we want is every time we launch the terminal, we want neofetch to launch. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen automatically, but it's very simple to get this to happen automatically. What we need to do is we need to open our bash RC. So what we need is our text editor on the system. There is a graphical text editor on the system if you wanted to use it. So if we did a super P to bring up Rofi, I believe they're using Z, XED. Yeah. This is our text editor. And if you go to File, Open, go to your home directory, right click because it's a hidden file, show hidden files. And what we want to do is open up our bash RC in Z. And all you really need to do, just scroll down to the very end of the bash RC. So write the word neofetch and then save. Then close Z. Close your terminal. Now open up a new terminal. Not bad, right? Now already we're on our way to becoming a little bit more of a power user here in Linux Mint. Now let me super and the left arrow key to put the terminal there. And I want to bring back up Z. So super P for Rofi and then type Z. And I'm going to put Z on the right-hand pane there. And I'm going to go back and open a recent file, the bash RC. We're actually going to play with this just a little bit because you know what I don't like in our default bash shell here in Linux Mint? LS is the standard LS. I never want LS just to be LS because I want all the hidden files and hidden directories to show. Typically, I want LS to at least be ls.lah for long format, all files, including the hidden ones, and then H for human readable numbers. That's the LS I would want if I was going to use the ls command. So I would go in here, and there is already an alias for ls in the bash RC. They're using ls space -- color equals auto. Really doesn't do much for us. I would change that to ls space -lah. And I could save that. And now let's open up a new terminal because we have to restart bash. And now when I do a ls, it is ls-lah. Super P. Let me launch Z again because I accidentally closed it. Let me get the bash RC back up. Now, while ls-lah is okay, it could be more colorful. It could have some more pizzazz. What I would do is I would simply just replace ls. There are some programs out there that do ls in a more sexy sort of way. And one of my favorites is exa. And to install exa, if it's in your system repositories, it would be, of course, sudo apt install exa, but I don't know if it's here. Let's see if it is. It's not. I didn't think it would be. But it is installable through this package manager called cargo. So you could run cargo install exa. If cargo was installed on the system, it's not. So let's sudo apt install cargo. And Y for yes to confirm that we want cargo to install. Cargo is another package manager. It is for the Rust programming language, and exa is a Rust program. All right, cargo is installed. Now we can run cargo install exa. I should also zoom in Z. I'm not exactly sure what the key binding to zoom in Z is. I go to view, control plus equals. So yeah, that's very similar to the terminal. Alright, and exa is finished installing. It says be sure to add your home directory .cargo/bin to the path so you can actually run the exa binary. What this means is typically to run exa you type exa, just the name of the program. But it's actually not going to work because you would actually have to type the full path to it, which would be, in your home directory /.cargo/bin/exa, the full path to where the exa binary, and then exa actually runs. Now what you need to do is add the .cargo/bin to your path. How you do that? Well, you do this in the bash RC file, which we already have open. What I would do is I'm going to put this at the top, and I'm going to type path equals, and then do a double quote, and then what you want to do is the $ home. That's basically an alias for your home directory, in my case /home/dt, but it'll know your home directory. And then we're going to do /, and then we're going to do .cargo/bin, because that's the directory we want to add to the path. Now, right behind that, you want to do the $, and then the opening braces, the curly braces, and then the word path, colon plus colon, dollar symbol, and then opening curly braces and path, then the closing curly braces twice, and then the closing double quotes. Basically, what the line is saying is we're changing our path. We're saying, hey, we're taking the existing paths, where all the binaries are on the system, user bin and /bin and everything like that, .local /bin. We're just prepending .cargo/bin to the path. So it will be recognized as a directory that has binaries on the system. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back to this terminal. I'm going to close it. So let's launch a new terminal. And let me zoom in a little bit. And instead of having to type the full path to where exa is on the system, I can now type just exa. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But that's not very sexy either. That's basically like a basic ls command, So exa does have some flags. How you check out the flags, you could do exa space -- help, and it will tell you all the flags. And the ones I like to use exa space -al space -- color equals always space, and then -- group directories first. Now, that's my exa. You guys seen me run that a million times. Now, what I would do is I would take this and I would make an alias so we never have to type that very long command again. And what I would do is find that ls alias that we did before, right here, get rid of that, and paste that exa command in, save. Let me close the terminal, bring up a new terminal, and now when we run ls, what really runs is exa with all those flags we gave it. That is already a much sexier terminal with the neofedge, and every time you run ls, you're really getting a much prettier ls. Now let me move the terminal back over to the left. Now, one thing that is bugging me is the terminal has this nice Monokai theme. If I do super P, Rofi has this nice Monokai color scheme. Z is this blinding white color scheme. Is there a Monokai color scheme out there for Z? Well, there probably is. I'm going to do super P to launch Rofi, and I'm going to start typing Firefox, and once Firefox is the last thing in the list, I can just hit enter. And let's do a Google search. I'll do the custom Google search right here in the Mint page instead of doing the search up here, which defaults to Yahoo. We'll give the Linux Mint guys a little money by using the Google search engine here on their page. And what I want to search for is Z is actually a fork originally of gedit, the old GNOME text editor. And the themes and the plugins for gedit also work in Z. So if I do gedit, and then Monokai, because we're going to search for Monokai theme for gedit, because it's going to work just fine in Z as well. And it looks like there is one, this very first result, Monokai theme for gedit. And let's click on it. It has a nice screenshot. It looks very pretty. Where do we get it? We get it from this guy's GitHub. All right. And this is it. It's just this one file here. So what I would do is I would copy this file. So I'm just going to highlight the whole document, right click, copy. And I'm going to go back over here. Let's create a new tab here in Z. Let's paste what we copied. And then let's save this document. So I'm going to do a save as, and I'm just going to save it here in the home directory. I'm going to call it zmonokai.xml. It needs to have the XML extension because it's an XML file. If you don't add the proper extension, then you may not actually get this to work. So then I'm going to go into edit, and then I'm going to go into preferences here in Z. I'm going to go to theme. There's some built-in themes. Monokai was not one of the options, but remember, we got our own Monokai theme. Yeah. Already, that looks really good. The XML document here looks good. How does Bash look? Yeah, the Bash RC looks really good too. Well, let me close out Firefox here. Kind of like in the terminal, we really don't need all this extra stuff here. So eventually what you want to do learning Z is learn some of the default key bindings to open new tabs and saving files and replacing, search and replace and things like that. But what you eventually want to do is go into View, I believe. Yeah, View. I would turn off the toolbar. I would turn off the status bar, which is the bottom part here. You don't need any of that information. It tells you what line you're on, but Honestly, I would probably try to find some other plugin to give me line numbers actually in the document itself. You know, you want just a clean view, especially in a terminal or in a text editor. You want a very clean view, because if you're actually in here doing some work, programming, or doing some creative writing, the less distractions, the better. You want a distraction-free experience. Now let me do the Super P again and open up Firefox. One thing I don't like though is the Firefox theme. It's not going to make sense unless we have Firefox as Monakai as well. So I'm going to go into this little hamburger menu here, and I'm going to go to Firefox add-ons. Does somebody have a Monakai theme for Firefox? 104 results. We'll use the first one. Yeah, that looks good. Only 12 users. Install this at your own risk. So it's a VM for me, so I don't mind it. I'm going to go ahead and add it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I already like it. It did change the colors. Let's go to just some random web page. I go to google.com. But you see the theme inside Firefox. The tabs and the menu system all look good. If you really wanted to get creative, you could try to do some custom CSS for web pages you go to all the time. I'd accidentally invoked some of the key bindings in my host machine. Alright, so I've restarted the computer, and I like the way everything has kind of turned out. I like our terminal already. We actually should have created a launcher for Zed. You know what, let's launch Zed right here. We'll take care of that problem. I'll just launch it from the terminal because I just want it to appear at the bottom here, and I'm going to pin to panel. Now if we're going to keep with the Monakai theme, let's go ahead and see if I can find a Monakai GTK theme. Do you think there's one out there? There might be. There's got to be. There's too many people out there that use the Monakai theme for somebody not to have created a GTK theme for it. So I'm going to do Monakai GTK theme. Didn't spell it right, but it still found what we were looking for. All right, so somebody has this on GitHub. GTK theme using Monakai, dark, yeah. All right, to install it, you clone this repository into your theme folder. So let's super enter to bring up a terminal. Let's go ahead and git clone this repository. We're going to need that link. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it in our terminal. And I'm going to git clone that repository. Now, this is in our home directory. So we actually need that GTK theme in the directory on our system where the themes actually are supposed to go, which I believe is in user share themes. What I would do is I would do a move, and then the directory that we just got from GitHub is Monakai GTK. So where are we going to move it to? We're going to move it to /user/share/themes. And it says permission denied, so we need sudo privileges to do this because user share themes is a protected directory. So run it with sudo. All right, if I cd into /user/share/themes and do an ls, somewhere in our themes here, we should see the Monakai directory that we just sent there. Yeah. So let's see if we can change the GTK theme. So I'm going to hit the system settings button there. And where are the themes? It's right here under appearance. All right. And I'm not exactly sure in Cinnamon how to change themes. I don't use Cinnamon that often, but if I go to window borders, Monakai GTK is an option. If I go to icons, I'll just leave the Minty icons because we didn't do an icon theme. But buttons, is there a Monakai GTK button theme? Yep, let's change that. Yeah, already I'm liking this a lot. Mouse pointer's fine. Desktop, is there a Monakai desktop theme? Yeah, there is, Monakai GTK. Awesome. Let me close out Firefox here. And let me close the terminal. And let's open up, I don't know, our file browser and see how we like the Monakai theme. And does that fit with our terminal and our text editor? I think so. Already, this is so much better than what we were presented with out of the box. Now for our file browser, I hate these big icons, and I want as much information on the screen as possible. We definitely always want to see our hidden files and directories. It doesn't make sense to have that stuff hidden. And then I always want a list view. One thing that bothers me is this panel is kind of hideous. It's way too big, right? You want to have as much screen real estate as possible. So what I'm going to do is, can I move the panel? Move it. I'm going to move it to the top. I think that'd be a better position for what we're doing. And then I'm going to go into panel settings. And let's see what I can do here. So the left zone, I'm assuming, is all of this here. Allow theme to determine the font size. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Colored icon size though, 16 point. Oh yeah, I like that. Let's set the panel height to something more appropriate. 24 pixels, kind of what works for me. You know what, let's do the same thing for the centered zone and the right zone. Yeah, I like that. The only thing that's missing now really, we need wallpaper. We need a wallpaper to fit with our Monokai design. I don't like the icons on the desktop. Can we get rid of that? I may have to go back in the system settings. If I hit desktop here, yeah, icons, let's set that to no desktop icons. All right, now let me super P to bring up Rofi. Let's launch Firefox. I'm gonna do Monokai wallpaper. And I wanted the image tab here in Google. Well, I was trying to help the Mint guys out, but you know what? Let me just go to google.com. Let me get a proper google.com here. Monokai wallpaper. Oh, and click the images here. And just looking around, oh, that's a nice one. It's hosted over on Imager. Right click, view that image. What, I like that. Let me save that image. And I'm going to just save it in pictures for now. I'm going to rename it so I know exactly what it is. Monokai wallpaper. All right. Then if I right click on it again, this time I'm going to set as desktop background. All right, close Firefox. You know what? This is already becoming a pretty damn sexy desktop, if I do say so myself. Yeah, I could use this. I absolutely could use this. Bring up a terminal, you use your hotkeys, bring up Rofi. I probably should have set Z to a hotkey. Let's open up something in Z, make sure it still looks all sexy. Yeah, looks great. LS, of course, still is EXA. Our graphical applications look good. Our graphical file manager, the new Monokai GTK theme looks good. Of course, you guys, if you really want to branch out a little further, I said we wouldn't really install too many extra programs on the system. If you didn't want to use the Nemo file manager, if you're going to spend some time in the terminal anyway, you may want to use something like Ranger. It's a simple sudo apt install Ranger. Then once you have Ranger installed, you can just type Ranger here in the terminal, and you get a file manager that's pretty easy to navigate. I will tell you, if you want your hidden files, the very first thing you should do in Ranger is type ZH to let Ranger know you always want to see your hidden files and directories. And Q to quit out of Ranger. So yeah, there's just a little bit of what I would do with something like Linux Mint and the Cinnamon desktop environment, or any of the big traditional distributions with their big traditional desktop environments. These days, that's typically how I would live in something like, if I had to live in GNOME, I'm going to have all my programs hotkeyed that I use all the time anyway. I'm going to make sure that I can open and close programs with hotkeys. I'm going to make sure that I have a run launcher like Rofi or dmenu or something like that on the system. And really, once you start, playing with the desktop environment, tweaking it to your needs in this sort of way, really what we've done is you're almost to the point now where you've made Cinnamon, in this case, almost irrelevant, because you're making the desktop environment basically yours. We've customized it with these key bindings and everything. At some point, you may want to really branch out into something configurable like standalone window managers, so floating window managers like OpenBox or Fluxbox or JWM, or tiling window managers, which I've covered a million tiling window managers on the channel. This was a fun video to do. It was fun to get into Linux Mint and play around, especially with tools I don't play around with much, trying to theme things like the GNOME terminal and the Z text editor and the Cinnamon desktop environment. This was a nice change of pace, so I really appreciate you guys that kind of pushed me, to do something like this. Now, before I go, I need to thank Michael, Mitchell, Gabe, Hablo, Nate, Arch5530, Chris, Chuck, DJ, Donnie, Dylan, George, LibreQuest, Omri, Paul, Rob, Sean, and Willie. These guys, they're the producers of the show. They're my highest tiered patrons over on Patreon. Without these guys, this episode you just watched wouldn't have been possible. The show is also brought to you by each and every one of these ladies and gentlemen, all these fine ladies and gentlemen, all these names you're seeing on the screen. This is my supporters over on Patreon, because this channel is sponsored by you guys, the community. If you'd like to sponsor the channel, please consider doing so. You'll find DistroTube over on Patreon. All right, guys. Peace.